Have you ever heard of the mystery of the princes in the tower? It's a tale of ambition, betrayal, and a dark question that has haunted English history for over 500 years. At the center of it all is one of Shakespeare's most infamous villains, King Richard III. But was he truly the monster history has painted him to be? Let's travel back to the 15th century and uncover the truth behind this royal cold case. Our story begins in the spring of 1483. England's King Edward IV, a charismatic and powerful ruler, dies unexpectedly. His death throws the kingdom into turmoil. The crown is supposed to pass to his eldest son, a 12-year-old boy also named Edward. Young Edward V is on his way to London for his coronation, full of hope and expectation. But he never makes it to the throne. Waiting for him is his uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Richard was King Edward IV's loyal younger brother, his most trusted commander, and a man known for his piety and military skill. He was appointed Lord Protector of the realm, tasked with guiding his young nephew until he came of age. At first, everything seemed to be going according to plan. Richard intercepts the young king's party, assuring everyone he's merely protecting him from political rivals. He escorts the young Edward to London, but instead of taking him to the royal palace for his coronation, he lodges him in the Tower of London. At the time, this wasn't as sinister as it sounds. The Tower was both a fortress and a royal residence, a traditional waiting place for monarchs before their crowning. Soon after, Richard brings Edward's younger brother, 9-year-old, Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York, to join him in the Tower, supposedly to keep him company. The two boys, the rightful heirs to the throne, are seen playing in the Tower Gardens for a few weeks. They are a symbol of the future, the continuation of the House of York. But then, as the summer of 1483 wears on, the sightings become less frequent. And then they stop altogether. The princes vanish from public view, seemingly into thin air. A chilling silence descends over the tower. While the boys are locked away, events outside the tower walls are moving at lightning speed. Richard, the Lord Protector, makes a shocking move. A clergyman comes forward with a stunning claim that the late King Edward IV had been secretly pre-contracted to marry another woman before he married the prince's mother, Elizabeth Woodville. If this were true, it would mean Edward's marriage was invalid. And if the marriage was invalid, then all of his children, including the two princes in the Tower, were illegitimate. This declaration, known as titulus regis, effectively disinherited the princes. Suddenly, the line of succession was redrawn, with his nephews declared illegitimate, who was next in line for the throne. None other than their uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester. The path was clear. On July 6, 1483, Richard was crowned King Richard III. His rise from Lord Protector to King took less than 3 months. The speed and ruthlessness of this political maneuver were breathtaking. But a darker question lingered in the minds of the people. What happened to the boys? They were no longer a direct threat to the throne, but their very existence was a liability. As long as they were alive, they remained a symbol for Richard's opponents to rally around. Whispers began to circulate, quiet at first, then growing louder. The whispers turned into a dark and horrifying rumor that the new king had ordered his own nephews to be murdered to secure his crown. The accusation was explosive. Did Richard, the man who had sworn to protect his nephews, commit the ultimate act of betrayal? This is where the historical record becomes murky and the legend begins. According to Sir Thomas More, writing decades later under the Tudor dynasty that defeated Richard, the king ordered the boys to be smothered with their pillows as they slept. More's account is vivid, detailed, and utterly damning. He paints a picture of a remorseless tyrant who would stop at nothing to gain power. This version of events became the official story. It was amplified by William Shakespeare, whose play Richard III cemented the king's image as a poisonous, bunch-backed toad, a physically deformed and morally monstrous villain who gleefully plots the murder of his innocent nephews. For centuries, this was the Richard III everyone knew, a child killer, a usurper, a tyrant. The evidence seemed clear, the verdict of history delivered, but in recent years, historians have started to question this narrative. They ask, is it too simple? Too convenient? The primary sources accusing Richard, like Thomas More's account, were written after Richard was dead under the rule of the Tudor kings, who had a vested interest in blackening his name. After all, Henry Tudor, who became King Henry VII, defeated Richard at the Battle of Bosworth Field to justify his own claim to the throne. It was politically essential to portray Richard as an illegitimate and evil king. Tudor propaganda was a powerful machine. Let's look at the case with fresh eyes. Could someone else have been responsible? Some historians point the finger at Henry Stafford, the Duke of Buckingham. He was Richard's right-hand man, instrumental in his rise to power. But shortly after Richard's coronation, Buckingham rebelled against him. What was his motive? Some speculate that Buckingham himself had a distant claim to the throne and may have killed the princes, hoping to frame Richard and seize the crown for himself. The rebellion failed, and Buckingham was executed, taking any secrets he had to the grave. Then there's the most intriguing suspect of all, Henry Tudor himself. Henry became King Henry VII after defeating Richard when he took the throne. The princes were still a potential problem. If they were alive, they had a better claim to the throne than he did. Henry married their older sister, Elizabeth of York, to unite the warring houses of York and Lancaster. But what if the boys were still hidden somewhere? It's possible that Henry VII, upon taking power, discovered the princes were still alive and quietly had them eliminated to secure his own dynasty. It's a chilling thought, but from a purely political standpoint, he had a very strong motive. The mystery deepened in 1674, nearly 200 years after the princes disappeared. During renovations at the Tower of London, workmen discovered a wooden chest buried beneath a staircase. Inside were the skeletons of two small children. Everyone assumed these were the remains of the long-lost princes. The bones were declared to be those of Edward and Richard, and were given a royal burial in Westminster Abbey. Case closed, right? Not quite. In the 20th century, the bones were examined, and the analysis suggested they were consistent with the ages of the princes. However, modern forensic science is far more advanced. Today, DNA testing could potentially confirm their identities and even give us clues about their cause of death. But the royal family has, to this day, refused permission for the bones to be exhumed and re-examined. Why? Perhaps out of respect for the dead, or perhaps because the truth could be more complicated and disruptive than we imagine. So, where does that leave us? We have a king, Richard III, who had the motive and the opportunity. His seizure of the throne was ruthless, and the disappearance of his nephews on his watch is deeply suspicious. He remains the prime suspect. However, the case against him is built almost entirely on propaganda, written by his enemies after his death. There is no contemporary, first-hand account proving he ordered the murders. We're left with a fascinating historical puzzle. Was Richard III the Shakespearean monster, a cold-blooded killer who murdered his own kin for a crown? Or was he a victim of one of the most successful smear campaigns in history? His reputation destroyed to legitimize a new dynasty. Was the real killer his ambitious ally Buckingham, or his rival Henry Tudor? The story of the princes in the Tower is more than just a murder mystery. It's a powerful lesson in how history is written by the victors. It reminds us to question the narratives we're given, to look beyond the famous plays and sensational stories, and to search for the complex truths that lie buried beneath centuries of legend and propaganda. The boys in the Tower were silenced, their voices lost to time. But the quest to find out what truly happened to them continues to this day, a haunting echo from a dark and turbulent past. What do you think? Was Richard III a villain or a victim of history? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this journey into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. See you next time.